all been there. You bought that one special skein of yarn at a yarn festival or on vacation because you visited a yarn store there, and now you don't know what to do with it. Well, I have some pattern ideas for you that might inspire you for single skeins of fingering weight yarn. In this case, most of them are hand dyed that I have here, but you can also just use any 100-gram skein of yarn that you have in your stash. These will all be fingering weight patterns or fingering with another strand held together, because that's what I have most in my stash. And I have a few different categories. So yeah, if you need some pattern inspiration, stick around for this video. If you're new here, my name is Melissa, I'm a knitter based in Belgium, and I like to make regular podcast episodes, but from time to time I also like to make a special video based around a theme and share some pattern inspiration with you. And for this one, I've been wanting to make this video for a while, but I've been struggling myself with finding patterns for that special one skein of yarn, even though I have many special skeins. Mostly sock yarn, so that's what today's video will be about, mostly. But besides socks, you can definitely knit other things with that one skein of fingering hand-dyed yarn. The three categories will be, of course, socks, because I love knitting socks and they're perfect for that one skein. But I've also gathered some other patterns that you can knit with just one skein of fingering weight yarn. And then also you can combine that one skein of fingering weight yarn with another strand, like a mohair or an alpaca fluff, if you're not comfortable with a mohair. So yeah, a whole bunch of fun patterns. So let's get started. As I mentioned, of course, you can knit socks with that one special skein. And I have knit quite a bunch. I have some skeins that I pulled out of my stash that I would like to show you. For example, this beautiful one by the Mindful Creators. I think a lot of my hand-dyed single skeins are by the Mindful Creators, just because I love her collections. So I usually pick up a skein when I'm at a yarn festival, or just pre-order them from her collection. This color is called Raspberry Jam, and it's just so lovely. Then another one is this beautiful green one, which is called A New Look. This is all on her Soulful Sock base, which is a superwash merino and nylon blend. They even look very cute together. Maybe I can combine them in a project. And I also have this beautiful skein. This color is called Cheesecake Al Pistachio. And this is a sock set. But you can easily combine a single skein from your stash with a mini that you find somewhere else or some leftover yarn. This is a beautiful sock set. It's called Island Blush. And so yeah, these are some examples of skeins that I have in my stash. And now I will show you what I've previously made with some of these yarns. So of course I couldn't leave out Stone Knit's patterns. She is a brilliant colorwork sock knitter, pattern designer, and I absolutely love her designs. I have 2 of her books. She's coming out with a 3rd one that I already pre-ordered. But this one is just a regular pattern of her that you can buy on Ravelry. And these are the Jolly Jellyfish socks, I believe. And yeah, this is made with 2 different skeins of hand-dyed yarn. So if you have multiple, you can combine them for socks. So the background color is a very lightly variegated blue, and then you have this pinkish color for the jellyfish. And I even have leftovers of both of these, so I could knit another pair of socks with these yarns. And I think they're very cute. Another Stone Knit's pattern that I love are my lavender socks. And as you can see here, I used a variegated skein for the background, which works really well. And then I used some other yarns from my stash to knit the colorwork. This is great to use up very small bits of leftover yarn, or if you have mini skeins, you can combine them with that one special skein. So you have a very beautiful and special pair of socks. But of course you don't have to knit colorwork. If you really only have that one special skein, you can knit a pair of textured socks or cabled socks. These are mock cables. These are the rainy day socks. And I've used I don't know the exact name of the yarn anymore, but I know it's a BFL sock yarn, which I found really interesting to try. And so they're perfect for these socks. They wear really well. I absolutely love wearing these in winter. And yeah, it's very fun, this light gray with colored speckles. Or you could also knit some lace. The name of this pattern anymore, but they're from Lydia Rabarber, a pattern that I test knitted a while ago. And so yeah, you can do some lace. It works really well with this color. I don't think it clashes. If your skein is more variegated, then of course this is not maybe the ideal project. You could also just knit a simple vanilla sock. But if you want to go for something more special, something with a bit of lace, and then of course like some contrast, heels and toes are optional. Then some other sock ideas. Another pattern collection is the Cuff Club by Summer Lee. That's a pattern where you have like the one base stock, but each month, so 12 different patterns, you get for the cuffs. So you get a different colorwork chart for each month. And I think it's very fun to again use up some little bits for that colorwork, but mostly use your one special skein of yarn. Another really cute pattern that I came across just now was the Ye Olde Bookshop socks by Grey Owl Knits. I think they're really fun for fall, and I really want to look into my stash for some yarns that could work for this pattern. Well, some colors that I like combination of. But if you have a very lightly variegated or tonal sock yarn, then I think this is a great pattern for it. Moving on to the next category is the just one single skein of yarn. And I have filled my project bag here with some yarn options from my stash. And also an example. I have recently knit this scarf number 2 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. And as you can see, it's pretty big. But this actually only used up half a skein of fingering weight yarn. I have another color of this same yarn. It's again by the Mindful Creators, and this is her Heavenly Alpaca base. And it's 70% baby alpaca, 20% silk and 10% cashmere. And this 100-gram skein has 400 meters. And yeah, you can see it's a different color, very pastel-y. And yeah, so I knit this tiny scarf, the biggest size of the pattern, with only half the amount, with only half a skein of yarn. And yeah, it ties around my neck really nicely. I think it's very cute. So of course a tiny scarf can work really well for a single skein of hand-dyed yarn. You can even knit 2 of these scarves out of this one skein, so you can gift the other one to a friend or your mom or your sister and have a little matching knit. Then some other yarns from my stash, again one by the Mindful Creators. This is her lovely linen base, and this is the undyed color. It's called Morning Oats. And this yarn has 80% merino and 20% nylon. And I've used this yarn before to knit a t-shirt, but I held it double. But you can of course just use this yarn single. This could be very cute for a tiny little lace headscarf maybe. And then I also have this yarn. I also bought this at a yarn festival, and this is called Yaldi Yak Sok. This yarn has 70% superwash merino, 20% yak, and 10% nylon. So I think it's also very fun if you want to try out a new yarn base or a new blend of fibers. If you have that 100-gram skein, you can knit something with this. I also have this one from the same brand. It's called the We Yarn Company. I also have this beautiful purple, and the base is called Art, and it's 100% superwash Polworth wool. So I've never worked with this kind of wool before, and I think it looks really great. I think either of these could work really well, I think, for a Musselburgh hat. I have the pattern in my library, but I haven't knitted before. For this pattern, you start at the top, at the crown, and you increase. And then you just knit a straight tube and decrease again for the crown, and then it's folded in on itself. So the pattern is actually a swatchless pattern. You don't have to swatch beforehand. You just cast on and then do some measurements and see how many stitches you need to increase for it to fit your head. So I think that's really great. And it actually uses up an entire skein of yarn, because I think you measure the amount you have used for the increases on the first half, and then you just use up the amount to knit the other half. So you actually have no leftovers at all, which I think is really great. So I think, yeah, this one or this one could maybe be a really beautiful, simple stockinette hat. Then if you're more of a shawl knitter, you could also knit the One Love shawl by Giochi Locatelli. Maybe that would be another great pattern for this yarn, because this is really nice and drapey, super soft with the cashmere. And yeah, with 400 meters, you can actually knit a pretty big sized scarf. Yeah, so this pattern actually also uses the entire skein. You knit some garter, some lace, and it looks really lovely, and it's a decently sized shawl. Then something that uses up a little bit less yarn, but could also work really well, are the Waystone Mids Light. It's again a fingering weight pattern, and this is knit in half brioche stitch. The description on Ravelry mentions that it's a great pattern to get started with brioche if you want to try, so I think that would be good for me, because I still haven't tried brioche. So I might knit these mittens somewhere this fall. They use less than half a skein of yarn, so it could be great to knit a pair of mittens and then something else with the same yarn. Another pattern that I found is the 100 stitch snoot, which is actually a free pattern. And it also uses only half a skein of yarn, so it could be great to make a little matching set of the brioche mittens with this basic stockinette snoot to use up that one special skein of yarn. The pattern is, as I said, it's a free pattern, and I believe you probably only cast on 100 stitches and then just knit this giant tube. I haven't looked at the pattern yet. But yeah, it seems fairly simple, very beginner friendly, and also pretty mindless. So yeah, those are some options to just use up that one single skein. And then last but not least, you can of course combine your one skein of yarn with a mohair or another strand of a fluffy yarn to make a beautiful project. The first example I've made myself is this beautiful Birds of a Feather shawl by Andrea Mowry. I knit this one last year, and yeah, it's pretty big. This uses only one skein of the light purple, which is again the Heavenly Alpaca by Mindful Creators. And I combined it with a strand of Surrey, also hand-dyed yarn, but by a dyer who doesn't make the yarn anymore. But yeah, you could use just any mohair you have in your stash. I did use 2 skeins of the mohair, the alpaca I think. But yeah, again, 100 grams of mohair and 100 grams of a fingering weight skein works for this pattern. I have made some slight adjustments, as have quite a few other knitters, so you can check that out on Ravelry. But yeah, I think it's a beautiful project and it's very lightweight and fluffy, but still very warm. Some other options you could knit with a skein of fingering weight and a mohair is of course some very simple penny gloves by Petite Knit. I've knit multiple of these already. This is my favorite pair I have. This is a very simple pattern. I've shortened the cuffs because I prefer that. But yeah, these don't even use an entire skein. So you could knit a pair of these simple penny gloves and then the snoot or like a tiny shawl to go with it. Yeah, always great to have a pair of fingerless mittens. And then some more yarns from my stash that I'd like to show you. So this one I've showed already. I bought this in London last year. And I also bought this mohair to go with it. I thought it would be lovely to knit a tiny scarf. This is, by the way, the mohair by Knitting for Olive. And I think it goes really well with this beautiful hand-dyed skein by the Camel's yarn. And I think it would be lovely to maybe do a poet scarf by Sarah Nordland with this yarn. There are many scarf patterns out there. I will be doing a separate video on tiny scarves very soon. So be sure to subscribe to my channel if you don't want to miss that. Yeah, I think this yarn would work really well for that pattern. I also have this beautiful skein in my stash of Life in the Long Grass. And these two matching skeins of silk mohair. This one is by Isager. And yeah, I think again they work really well together. I also bought this in London last year. And I think it could be really cute to maybe knit a little purse with this yarn. So I can really have it with me. And a pattern that I found is one by Petite Knit. It's the Marie Clutch. And yeah, I've seen quite a few knitters make this. It looks really cute. You have to do some sewing by hand and make a lining, but I don't think that would be a problem for me. I think a fluffy purple clutch would be really cute for winter. So I hope you found some inspiration in these patterns. I will for sure be making quite a few of these. And when I do, I will of course share about that on my podcast episodes. In 2 weeks, there will be another podcast episode, so be sure to subscribe to my channel to not miss out. And if you want to see more scarf pattern recommendations, definitely also stay tuned for my next special video pattern roundup. Let me know down below if you will be making any of these patterns and what special skein of yarn you're saving. And I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!